Uh, Welcoming you all to all the class 12 students of history from Odisha, and this program and this class is financed by the Department of School and Mass Education, Government of Odisha. I'm standing here at RAVENSHAW Higher Secondary School, CUTTACK. It is Samuel LIMMA. So let's get start of this topic. It is the Unit 4, the British economic policies in India between 1757 to 1857. So I'll just try to finish both the commercial policy and the drain of wealth as briefly as possible. So let's get started the first topic, the commercial policy. So slide number 2, the commercial policy. The commercial policy, and in this topic, the British economic policies in India, we'll discuss 4 major aspects. Number 1, the commercial policy. Number 2, the drain of wealth. Number 3, the development of means of transport and communication. And the number 4 is revenue policy. So today's topic is commercial policy. In this commercial policy part, so we'll discuss about 7 major aspects. Number 1, the commercial origin of colonialism. Number 2, British India economic and commercial relations before 1757. And number 3, the commercial policy after 1757. And number 4, the impact of industrial revolution on the Indian economy. Number 5, the free trade policy of the government of India. Number 6, disruption of the traditional economy. And number 7 is the commercialization of agriculture. So number 1, so the commercial origin of colonialism. There were nearly 5 major European East India companies. They had come to India for trade. So number 1, the English East India Company. Number 2, the Dutch East India Company. Number 3, the Danish East India Company of Denmark, Portuguese East India Company, and the French East India Company. I would like to just very briefly explain how the commercial relations of Britain with India began. So from 15th century onward, or particularly when the Europeans came to India, since 1498, Vasco da Gama sailed from Portugal to India around the Cape of Good Hope. It opened a new sea route for the trade between India and Europe. The British and the first European to reach the Cape was the Portuguese explorer Bartholomew Dias in 1488. So in this sense, John II of Portugal, it named Cape of Good Hope. And also this discovery, according to Adam Smith was the Scottish economist, and he was known as the father of economics. He says that the discovery of America and the Cape route to India was the 2 greatest and the most important events recorded in the history of mankind, according to Adam Smith. So number 2, slide number 6. Slide number 6, British India commercial relations before 1757. How the relation between India and Britain before the Battle of Plassey, or particularly the 1757. So number 1, from 1600 to 1757, the English East India Company's role in India was that of just a trading corporation. The company, it was in the beginning known as Merchant Adventurer, was granted a royal charter to trade with the East by Queen Elizabeth on 31st December 1600. And also it was popularly known as English East India Company. And John Watts was the first president of the company. In 1708, the company was known as the Limited Company of Merchants of England, trading to the East Indies. Slide number 7. The first voyage of English East India Company was made in 1601 to Indonesia. Then in 1608 and 1615, both Captain Hawkins and Sir Thomas Roe both reached to the Mughal court. In that time, Jahangir was the emperor or Mughal emperor in India, to obtain royal firman to trade with India. Both Captain Hawkins and Sir Thomas Roe, they came to India for trade. So English factories in India, slide number 8. So English factories in India, in this western part of India, Surat, it was first established in 1608, and later period it was developed into a factory in 1612 in Western India. In Southern India, Machilipatnam, today it is known as Machilipatnam. It was established in 1611. And then in Eastern India, Balasore, it was established in 1633. Three major factories established in India. In western side, Surat; in southern side, Machilipatnam; in eastern side, it was Balasore in 1633. English fortresses, three major English fortresses established in India. In southern India, it was known as Fort St. George. It was established in Madras Presidency. Another is Bombay in western India, and another is Fort William, India. So Fort St. George, it was established in Madras Presidency on southern India. In 1644, it is known as the first English fortress in India, founded in Madras through the granted by the local ruler in 1639. In western India, Bombay, in 1668, it was the Portuguese gave the island of Bombay to King Charles II of England to dowry for marrying a Portuguese princess. In eastern India, Fort William, it was established in 1699. The company acquired the jomidari of the three villages. It was Sultanati, Govindpur, and Kalikota, where it built the fort. In that time, William III was the king of Britain. In this sense, it was known as Fort William. The villages soon grew into a city which came to be known as Calcutta. In that time, Sir Charles Eyre became the first president and governor of Fort William. Slide number 10. So commercial policy after 1757, after the Battle of Plassey in 1757, how it was changed the commercial policy of Britain with India. Number one, how the Britishers, how the English East India Company, they were the merchant of the company. How in later period they became the master of the company, master of the country, merchant of the company to the master of the country. In 1857, by the end of 1857, within the 100 years period between 1757 to 1857, the English East India Company acquired 63% of this territory and 78% of the population came under the control of English East India Company. And this English East India Company acquired many foreign markets by means of war and different types of policies. So slide number 11. Slide number 11 very clearly shows that how different wars and policies were responsible for the English East India Companies acquired in India. Number one, the Battle of Plassey, 1757, Battle of Buxar, 1764, four Anglo-Mysore wars between 1767 to 1799, and three Anglo-Maratha wars between 1775 to 1818, and three major policies like dual government between 1765 to 1772, and subsidiary alliance from 1798 onward through the Lord Wellesley's time, and doctrine of lapse from 1848 during the time of Lord Dalhousie. So slide number 12. Slide number 12 says that between 1757 to 1947, or the attainment of India's independence, it is known as the three economic pages of Indian history, or it is known as three pages of economic colonialism. A book was published in 1940. It was written by R. Palmedat. R. Palmedat was the British journalist, and he was also the member of the Communist Party of Great Britain. A book was published in 1940. It is known as India Today. He says that the whole colonial policy in India, the whole colonial phases in India was divided into three parts. The number one, colonial phase, mercantile phase. Number second, industrial capitalism. And number third was finance capitalism. Mercantile phase, it is between 1757 to 1813. In this phase, companies' monopoly trade in India there was a monopoly trade of English East India Companies in India. And number second, they forced the artisans of Bengal to sell their products of cheaper rate. And also, Indian textiles had to pay heavy import duties on entering England. And the second phase, industrial capitalism, in 1813 onward, it is known as free trade policy. It is free trade policy, not both way free trade policy. Free trade policy means one way free trade policy. Whatever entered into India of the Britain's products, it is entered into India freely, and whatever India's product entered into England, they gave heavy import duty. In the second page, in this free trade policy, so it was known as free trade policy, and the last part, it is known as finance capitalism. Finance capitalism, particularly, it is 1850s onward, or 1850 or 1857 or 1858 onward, it is known as finance capitalism. Large-scale British investment began to India, particularly in the area of roadways, railways, waterways, and also in different types of they invested in different industries, particularly cotton textile industries, coal mining industries, and jute industry. Slide number 13. Different acts also responsible for the development of British role. Number one, the Regulating Act 1773, East India Act 1784, First Charter Act 1793, and Second Charter Act 1813, the next Charter Act 1833, and the fourth and the last Charter Act was 1853. In these four Charter Acts, the British companies, they rule in India. Slide number 14. Slide number 14 says that the impact of industrial evolution on Indian economy. The impact of industrial evolution. In that time, middle of the 18th century, the Britain's industry developed through the different types of different means. Number one, the British industries developed and expanded rapidly on the basis of modern machines, the factory system, and capitalism. The cotton textile industry saw the main vehicle of the industrial revolution in England. Company played a very important role in financing industrial expansion. Rapid increase in population in England. In that time, between 1750 to 1850, the number of the Britain's population grew rapidly, and Britain had in that time had a very under the influence of commercial interest. In that time, the manufacturers, the capitalists, and the industrialists, they were very much interested for the development of industry. The demands for increased production in that time, different persons also responsible like Hargreaves, Watt, Crompton, and Cartwright. They were also responsible for the development of industrial revolution in Britain in the second half of 18th century. Slide number 15. So slide number 15, in that time, two entirely new classes of society were born in England. Number one, the industrial capitalist who owned the factories, and number second, the modern working class. And number second, the rise of powerful class of manufacture had an important impact on the Indian administration and policies. Between 1793 to 1813, the interest, those who were very much interested in industry, they were launched a very powerful campaign against the company, and finally succeeded in 1813 in abolishing its monopoly of Indian trade. And then slide number 16. Slide number 16 says that the free trade policy of the government of India. What is? I have already little bit mentioned that. What is free trade policy? Free trade policy, it is unrestricted entry of British goods to India. India had to admit British goods free at nominal tariff rates. Indian handmade goods were unable to compete with the much cheaper products of British goods. And Indian handicraft products continued to pay heavy duties on entry into Britain. And it is very clearly mentioned that in 1824, the British government imposed heavy import duties, like 67% of it was levied on Indian calicos and 37% of the Indian muslins. Indian sugar had to pay on entry into Britain 3 times its actual cost. Slide number 17. It is clearly that India was now forced to export raw materials like raw cotton and raw silk, which British industries needed urgently. And the commercial policy after the 1813, it was guided by the needs of British industries. And the main aim, different historians, particularly Bipan Chandra, the former professor of JNU, he says that the commercial policy of Britain after 1813 is very important in the history of economic history of India. It is known as the second Cataract. From 1813 onward, so the main aim of the English East India Company and the main aim of the British government was the number one, to make India a consumer of British manufacturer and a supplier of raw materials. Whatever raw material went to England and it is processed in British factory and it is again re-exported to India. That is known as re-exported product. Slide number 18, it says that the disruption of the Indian economy, the Indian traditional economy, it was very much suffered by the 1813 policy. The British commercial policy led to the rapid transformation of Indian economy into a colonial economy. The ruin of artisans and craftspersons. Craftspersons and artisans, they were very much suffered in this 1813 policy. Slide number 19, the commercialization of agriculture. The commercialization of agriculture. 1840s or 50s, it is known as the commercialization in the process. What is, very briefly you will know that, what is commercialization or what is commercialization of agriculture? Commercialization, it is known as in the process of introducing a new product, making available in the market. Which product is very much available in the market? What is major commercial crops? It is not traditional or any other products. It is known as commercial crops. Commercial crops known as opium, cotton, indigo, silk, tea, jute, groundnuts, oilseeds, sugarcane, tobacco, spices, coffee and rubber. These are known as the commercial crops or commercial agricultural products which are developed after 1830s and 1840s. British business groups and houses were in total control of India's overseas trade by 1850 and also of banking and insurance. Banking, insurance, everything it was under the control of English East India Company's rulers by the end of 1850s, and the vast majority of poor peasants were forced into the commercialization process. This commercialization of process of agriculture forced the peasants to grow cash crops and neglect the sowing the poor man's grains like jawar and bajra. And one of the pernicious effects of commercialization was growing and indebtedness. Cash crops needed more money than normal, and the money had to be obtained as loan at high rates of interest. These are some of the very important things and important development during the time of 1757 to 1857. We discussed, particularly in this part, we discussed the commercial relation and commercial origins of colonialism, the British-India commercial relations after before 1757, commercial policy after 1757, and the impact of industrial revolution on Indian economy, and the free trade policy of the government of India, and the disruption of the India's traditional economy, and also we have discussed the commercialization of agriculture in India. These are some of the important topics we had discussed in the first part of between 1757 to 1857. It is known as the commercial policy. So let's start the second part, the drain of wealth. The drain of wealth between 1757 to 1850 or 1900. We'll discuss very briefly about some of the very important parts. The drain of wealth, it is also in the part of Unit 4. It is known as the drain of wealth in British India between 1757 to 1857. So slide number 2. So it is, we'll discuss some of the important parts in this drain of wealth. Number 1, we'll discuss what is drain of wealth. Number 2, Dadabhai Naoroji and his poverty and un-British rule in India, concept of economic drain, constituents of economic drain, estimates of economic drain, and economic consequences of the drain and its impact. Number one, we have to know that, so what is drain of wealth? What is drain of wealth? So according to economists and, slide number 3, according to economists and the theorists, they say that the constant flow of wealth from India to England, for which India did not get an adequate economic, commercial or material return, has been described by Indian nationalist historian and Indian national leaders and Indian nationalist economists as drain of wealth from India to Britain. So what was wealth in this sense? Very clearly it is mentioned. Wealth means whatever wealth which was drained to Britain from India, it is known as the gifts, all types of gifts, pensions, salaries, maintenance costs, training costs, and campaign expenses. These are known as the wealth which was the Indian and the Indian people they gave to the people of Britain. It was extracted by the English East India Company and later period the government of Britain since 1858 onward. So we have to know that who was Dadabhai Naoroji. Dadabhai Naoroji and R.C. Dutt in his book Economic History of India and Dadabhai Naoroji's book, who was Dadabhai Naoroji? Dadabhai Naoroji. So Dadabhai Naoroji, popularly known as the Grand Old Man of India, he was the first nationalist to propound the drain theory. He was the first person and also exposed the British exploitation of the Indian economy. So slide number 5, it is very clearly says that who was Dadabhai Naoroji. Dadabhai Naoroji, he was born in a Parsi family in Bombay in 1825. He was working as a professor of mathematics at Elphinstone College in Bombay. He was the editor of Rastguftar. Rastguftar means the speaker of truth or the truth teller. It was an Anglo-Gujarati paper started publishing from Bombay in 1854. And in 1866, he was set up the East India Association in London to create public opinion among the British on Indian issues. Naoroji, if we'll talk about Dadabhai Naoroji was the founding member of the Indian National Congress and also he was the president of Indian National Congress thrice in 1886, 1893 and 1906. He was also the first Asian and the first Indian to be a British MP of Liberal Party from 1892 to 1895. He was the first Asian and first Indian to be the Member of Parliament of Great Britain. He was elected from the Liberal Party between 1892 to 1895. Slide number 6. It is very clearly shows that in his book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, in his well-known book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, which was published in 1901, he pointed out how through various ways India was being exploited of its resources by the British. In his book, he says that he elaborated the drain theory and explained how it was adversely affecting India's economic development and resulting in economic impoverishment of the Indian masses. In his book, The Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, another book which was published or written by R.C. Dutt, The Economic History of India, these two books very clearly reflected and demonstrated the India's economic drain to Britain. Slide number 7, the concept of economic drain. So in the mercantilist concept, an economic drain takes place if gold and silver flow out of the country as a consequence and adverse balance of trade. So after Plassey, 1757, the Battle of Plassey, which was fought in Plassey in 1757 between the English East India Company's ruler and the ruler of Bengal. In that time, the situation was reversed and the drain of wealth took an outward turn as England gradually acquired monopolistic control over the Indian economy. If you will look at the companies, generally we will talk about the English East India Company. There were different types of European companies. They came to India for trade, and in later period at the English East India Company beated all the European East India companies like the Dutch East India Company, the Danish East India Company, the Portuguese East India Company, and the French East India Company. Company means, in this sense, you have to understand that English East India Company. The English East India Company has a recurring surplus which occur from, number one, profits from land revenue policy. It is the main income of the English East India Company. Profits from land revenue policy. There were different types of land revenue settlements in India. Later period we will discuss about the, particularly discuss about the land revenue settlement. Slide number 7. Okay. So profits from the land revenue policies, there were different types of land revenue settlements in India. Number one, it was Jamidari settlement. Later period it was permanent settlement and Mahalwari settlement and Riyotwari settlements. The main income of the English East India Company was land revenue policy or the land revenue. And number second, profits from the trade resulting from monopolistic control over Indian markets. From 1813 onward, or it is known as the free trade policy, or it is known as the Second Charter Act. From 1813 onward, the English East India Company's ruler or the merchants or businessmen of the English East India Company, they totally controlled the Indian economy. They totally controlled the Indian trade of India's import and India's exports. Everything, it was under the control of the English East India Company's ruler. And also the banking sector, the insurance sector, all the industries, India's roadway system, India's railway system, India's waterway system, and three major industries like the cotton textiles industry, jute industries, and coal mining industries. Everything, it was under the control of the British government or the English East India Company's government by the end of 1850. And the number third was the exactions made by the company's officials. The English East India Company's officials, they were very much interested to extract money from the Indian rulers and particularly from the India's trade. So slide number 8. Slide number 8, it is very clearly mentions that, so we have to know that the constituents of economic drain. So what was economic drain? Constituents of economic drain. Number 1, slide number 8. The economic drain mainly consisted of, number 1, home charges. So what was home charges? Home charges refers to the expenditure incurred in England by the Secretary of State on behalf of India. The office of the Secretary of State, it was in London. He was the head of the Indian affairs in England, and whatever they charged in India, it was extracted by the English East India Company's officials on behalf of India. Number 1, dividends to the shareholders of the company. 6.3 lakh pound to be paid to the shareholders of the company out of the Indian revenue till 1874. Till 1874, whatever paid to the shareholders, it was nearly 6.3 lakh pound. And number second, interest of public debt. Interest of public debt raised abroad, mostly incurred by the aggressive wars. By 1900, the public debt had rises to 224 million pound. Whatever expenses, whatever campaigns, whatever they did, the English East India Company did in their international campaigns, international wars, in the wars in India and wars in abroad, and their maintenance expenses in England and the office expenses in India, in their East India Company's headquarters in Calcutta, or later period in Delhi or Simla, or different presidencies, towns in Bengal presidency or in Madras presidency or in Bombay presidency, whatever expenses, it was paid by the Indian revenue or from the Indian people. So by the end of 1900, the public debt rises to 224 24 million pounds by the end of 1900. And also another different types of expenses and charges were also responsible for the Indian debt, like the civil and military charges. Civil and military charges. These included payments towards pensions of the British officers in the civil and military departments in India. The civil and military both departments. The civil department in India and the military departments in India, and there also in England, the military and civil departments, all the expenses were borne by the Indian people, or particularly the Indian revenue. The store purchases in England, particularly the store purchases means the slide number 8. Store purchases, store for the military, civil and marine departments in England markets. Whatever, the store, military or civil or marine departments, all the expenses were borne by the Indian people there in England or here in India also. So slide number 9. Number 2, interest on foreign capital investments. Interest on foreign capital investments. Interest and profits in private foreign capital were another important leakages from the Indian income or national income streams. Whatever the British government, they bore the loan, and it was all wholly, it was paid and borne by the people of India, or particularly from the Indian revenue. During the interwar period, the payments on this between 30 to 40 crore rupees per annum. Interwar period means in this First World War and Second World War, between 1918 to 1939, in between this period. So whatever were paid by the Indian people, it was nearly 30 to 40 crores per annum. Annually, Indian people, they gave 30 to 40 crore of rupees to the British government. And number 3, it was the foreign banking system and insurance and shipping companies. Whatever they invested in India after 1830s, 40s, particularly in the heavy industries or particularly in the infrastructure development, like in particularly in heavy industries like the coal mining industries, jute industries, cotton textile industries, and also heavy infrastructure development like the roadways, railways, waterways, and all these things. By 1914, foreign banks held over 70% of all banks deposits in India. By 1914, just before the start of the First World War, the foreign banking system, foreign insurance companies, and shipping companies, they held over 70% of all banks deposits in India. So slide number 10, it is you have to know that the estimates of economic then, what different experts and different historians, different officials, they say about the economic then. What was economic then? According to William Digby was the British author. In his book, a book was published by him, Prosperous British India. Prosperous British India, in his book, he says that, which was published in 1901, he mentions that between 1757 to 1815, 1757, we have to know that the Battle of Plassey in 1757, 1757 to 1815, about 500 to 1,000 pound worth had been drained from India to England. Just imagine, about 500 to 1,000 pound was drained from India between 1757 to 1815. Just after the second Cataract, it was passed after 1813. So another person, Lord Ellenborough, he was the chairman of the select committee of the House of the Lords. House of the Lords means he was the member of House of Lords. It was the part of British Parliament or the Parliament of Great Britain. There were two houses. One was the House of Lords, another is House of Commons. Lord Ellen Borough was the chairman of the Select Committee of the House of Lords. He admitted, the British people, the British officials also admitted that in 1840 that India was acquired to transmit annually to the country, Britain, without any return except a small value of military stores, a sum amounting to between 2 to 3 million pound sterling, except 2 to 3 million pound sterling. Whatever the gain in India, all the India's revenues and all the India's wealth were drained from India to Britain from 1757 to 1947 till the India's independence. So slide number 11. Slide number 11, it is according to John Sullivan. Very interesting thing. John Sullivan, he was the president of the Board of Revenue at Madras Presidency. He was once had commented on the economic drain. According to John Sullivan, he says that our system acts very much like a sponge, drawing off all the good things from the banks of the Ganges and squeezing them down on the banks of the Thames. ଏଇଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଜନ୍ ସୁଲିଭାନ ଗୋଟେ ଅତି ବିଶିଷ୍ଟ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି, ହି ୱାଜ୍ ଦି ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ଅଫ୍ ବୋର୍ଡ ଅଫ୍ ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁ, ସେଥିରେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଆମର ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ଗୋଟେ ସ୍ପଞ୍ଜ ଭଳିଆ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା କରିଦେଇଛି। ସମସ୍ତ ଭଲ ଜିନିଷ ଗଙ୍ଗା ନଦୀର ଉପକୂଳରୁ ତାକୁ ଶୋଷାଡ଼ି ନେଇକି ଇଂଲଣ୍ଡର ବା ଲଣ୍ଡନର ଥେମ୍ସ ନଦୀ କୂଳରେ ପକେଇଦେବା ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା କରିଛି। ସେ ଏଇଭଳିଆ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଜନ୍ ସୁଲିଭାନ। ହି ୱାଜ୍ ଦି president of the board of revenue. He also admitted in this pernicious thing. So by the end of the 19th century, means till 1900, by the end of the 19th century, it constituted nearly 6% of India's national income and 1/3 of the national savings. By the end of 19th century, whatever drained from India to England, it was nearly 6% of the India's national income. And it has been estimated that it constituted nearly 2% of Britain's national income. Whatever drained from India to England, it was nearly 2% of Britain's national income. An early industrialization period, just between 1750 to 1800. In the 20th century, in 1930s, about 130 to 140 million pound sterling had been drained, which India could have been built 3 Bhilai type steel plants. Particularly 1930s. By 1930s, nearly 130 to 140 million pound sterling had been drained from India to Britain. In that price, in that amount, India could have been built 3 type of Bhilai types of plants. 3 steel plant India could have been built. During the India's struggle for independence, this drain theory became the very India's in that time, in this drain theory became a very convenient slogan against the British rule in India. This drain theory, which was propounded by Dabha Naoroji, or in later period R.C. Dutt in his book Economic History of India, these persons were responsible, and this drain theory also became very responsible for the India's struggle for independence. It also played a very important role for the India's struggle for independence. So in this part, in this drain of wealth part, we had discussed what is drain of wealth, and Dadabhai Naoroji and his book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, the concept of economic drain, and also we had discussed the constituents of economic drain, the estimates of economic drain, and the economic consequences of the drain and its impact. So in this part, so what Dadabhai Naoroji says that, slide number 12, slide number 12, he says that Dadabhai Naoroji described that the drain of wealth as the evil of all evils, the main cause of India's poverty. India's own wealth is carried out and then it brought back to its sap of loans. In the historical perspective, the drain of wealth theory highlighted the foreign and exploitative character of the British rule. So, later period, this drain theory was played a very important role for the India's struggle for independence. Today we discussed about the British economic policies in India. Particularly, we have discussed two major things. Number one, the commercial policy between 1757 to 1857. And number second, the drain of wealth from India to Britain. Two major parts we had discussed. I hope all of you will be benefited in this class. So in this next class, we will discuss about the development of means of transport and communication and the land revenue policies. So thank you all.